Today we are finishing up First Chronicles. It's been like a little bit of a whirlwind as we wrapped up First and Second Samuel recently. Today we're wrapping up First Chronicles, and you do get the feeling as we read over these chapters that this is kind of the culmination of what this book has been pointing towards. And so today we're looking at First Chronicles 26 to 29, as well as Psalm 127. Now, some of what we read, I would say like most of 26 and a lot of 27, is a lot of that setting up for success that Jenny talked about just a couple nights ago. Jenny was talking about how God is a God of order, how it's clear that David is trying to make sure that Solomon is set up for success. He just goes about setting everything in its place and organizing everything the way it is supposed to be. We get more of that in chapter 26 and 27. But you do get this feeling as you read over them that it's clear that David is kind of at the end of his reign. He's trying to make sure that his son is successful. He's trying to make sure that his kingdom remains successful. And he's put in a lot of work to make sure that this temple, even though he's not allowed to build it, has everything it needs to have. So he organizes the gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, the stones. He appoints people over making sure things stay in their place, making sure that all the things that have been dedicated to the Lord stay in the Lord's house. He appoints craftsmen, he appoints priests. And so all this organizing is done so that they can be really successful when it comes time to build the temple. Then David kind of pulls the whole nation together. This starts out in chapter 28. And basically charges them to continue to obey the Lord. It kind of has the same feel of all those final speeches of the big-time Bible characters that we've seen before. Moses pulls the people together and tells them to obey the Lord. Joshua pulls together the people together and tells them to obey the Lord. It's that same kind of thing. And actually, he continues to use the same kind of language. I noticed as we've been reading over these books, I noticed the end of 2 Samuel, now I'm noticing here in 1 Chronicles, David's charge to his son Solomon is to be strong and courageous. It's exactly what was told to Joshua, and it's kind of this charge that the Lord is your God. Strength in the Lord is faith in the Lord, and if you obey his statutes and you do what he's commanded, he will guard you and keep you, and you will be strong and courageous. So it is cool that that theme continues throughout. It's also interesting, we get this picture of young Solomon. And Solomon, if you've been around church or the Bible for a long time, Solomon kind of has this reputation of being this powerful, wise king who everybody looks up to. He was just this incredible ruler. But at the end of First Chronicles, he's actually like this young, inexperienced dude. And David is concerned about that. He wants to make sure that everything is done to help his son be successful. And he is well aware of Solomon's inexperience. And he's concerned about it. He wants him to be set up as well as possible. And so David pulls Israel together. He tells them to obey the Lord. He tells them that Solomon will be their king. And then he asks them to offer sacrifices. And you have this picture in chapter 29 of everybody giving willingly to support the temple. So people are giving of their possessions. They're giving of their gold and their silver and their iron. They're giving of their sacrifices. At one point, I think they offer, it's actually towards the end, they offer 1,000 bulls and 1,000 rams and 1,000 lambs. So this is a big deal because this is the beginning of a new era of what has come to be known as the temple period, the first temple period. And so there's this grand worship service. The people just pour out their appreciation to God for who he is and what he's done. And they dedicate the beginning of the building of the temple. And then after this huge worship service, basically, they anoint Solomon as the new king of Israel. Solomon sits on the throne and David dies. And this is actually the end of the story of David as far as we will be reading about it here in the Bible. Everything is going to turn now to Solomon and we'll be coming into the period of the kings. So it's kind of interesting, as we've gone across this journey of reading the Bible, there's been many times where you get pretty invested in one character. You get really aware of their strengths and their weaknesses, the things that they did to honor God, the things they did to dishonor God, and eventually those people die. And here we have the end of the story of David. It says this is chapter 29, verse 28, "Then he died at a good age, full of days, riches and honor, and Solomon his son reigned in his place. Now the acts of King David from the first to the last are written in the Chronicles of Samuel the seer, and in the Chronicles of Nathan the prophet, and in the Chronicles of Gad the seer, with the accounts of his rule and his might, and the circumstances that came upon him, and upon Israel, and upon all the kingdoms and countries." And that's the end of David. If you're curious about what these books are, it would have been common for actual prophets and the chronicler calls these seers. It would have been normal for the prophets to keep records of what God was doing and what God was speaking. And so these chronicles of these seers and prophets would have been the main prophets in the time of David. And so we see that we recognize the names Samuel, we recognize Nathan, we recognize Gad. They would have had records that could have been reviewed by the chronicler to put together this book of Chronicles. Now, we have talked about, as we've walked through the book of Chronicles, how it has a little bit different goal than the book of Samuel. So we finished 2 Samuel a little while ago. The goal of 2 Samuel was just to present like the strengths and weaknesses of David, to present the story of David. The chronicler in 1st and 2nd Chronicles is trying to recreate a history, or I just retell, I guess, a history to a people that have come back from exile. So these two books are written very far apart. There's a lot of years in between. And the chronicler is trying to get the people to understand the importance of worship, the importance of the power of God. And that is why the culmination of 1st Chronicles is that the temple is about to be built. Everything in Chronicles has been leading towards the temple. And a lot of Chronicles you've seen in the past couple of days is a dedication to showing people what good and proper worship looks like. That's why the chronicler spends a lot of time talking about how many priests were set up and how many, objects were set up and what was dedicated to the Lord and how the worship should be done, because the people coming out of exile would not have had that. And so the chronicler is trying to make sure they have that so that worship can be done successfully now, returning from exile into Israel and Jerusalem. So that is why this book ends on a high note of the temple is prepared and ready to be built. Solomon is ready to lead the construction of the temple, and the people look forward to worshiping God in this huge temple that was given, the plans, it says in Chronicles, the plans were given to David by God. So we will start a journey into 1st and 2nd Kings and 2nd Chronicles. It looks like in 2 days. Tomorrow we're going to read some Psalms again. We're kind of sticking to that back and forth, in and out of the Psalms. But we're entering into a new period of biblical history for sure, with the reign of David being over, the reign of Solomon beginning, and the time of temple worship beginning very soon. So all that to say, your part for today, I love how David appears to finish pretty well in Chronicles. Now, some of that might be trying to make David look really good. We know kind of how David's life ended in 2 Samuel. It's a little bit subtly different. But I really like how David here is shown as trying to set up the next person really well, trying to set up his son Solomon really well. He's charging the people of Israel to remain faithful to the Lord, to obey his statutes. You just get this feeling that David, at the end of his life, even though he's had some significant highs and significant lows, he understands the power of God, and he wants to be sure that the people of Israel remain in the power of God. And it might be a little bit of a stretch here, but I think it's a good charge for us to finish well. Now, this is David. He's at the end of his life. Obviously, it's important for him to finish well for the life and legacy of David. I think the idea of finishing well actually carries over into many different areas of our lives. Like maybe it is a job. Maybe you're going to start a new job soon. Maybe, I work in student ministry. I've seen this happen a lot of times. Maybe you're a senior in high school or you're a senior in college and you're just kind of tapped out and you want to hurry up and get to the next thing. Maybe it's even, I guess, actually even just any old grade in school. Maybe it's the end of the year, which it definitely is. make sure you finish well. If you have a task that you're wrapping up at work, whatever the season is for you, it is always important to give 100% to the whole process, and not get worn out at the very end, and continue to bring your best. You want to bring your best, and you want to finish well. I'm reminded of the passage in Colossians that says, whatever you do, do it as for the Lord and not to man. And so we are trying to bring our best at all times as an act of worship to God, right? That's what we see in the end of First Chronicles, that they are going to build this temple with excellence to honor God. We want to carry whatever responsibility we've been given with excellence to honor God as well. So we'll be back again tomorrow. We're going to be looking at the Psalms, so we'll see you then.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.